Hello.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Denisov. This is Michal.
And my name is Michal Szczepanik. And okay, Alexander, looks like we are losing you. So generally, we will be discussing about Google I/O and what was shared by Google there. And we will try to provide our feedback regarding this event and what we can expect in future in both cases, Android and Flutter. So, Alexander, could you share something? Could you say something more about?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Is not.
Yeah, looks like we again lose Alexander. So I hope it will back to normal in a second. So we will split our presentation to two parts. The first part will be regarding Android news and what we heard about Android on Google I/O, and the second part will be presented by Alexander regarding Flutter. Okay, Alexander, you look much better than previously, and I even saw you 2 times.
But I'm here. It's better than my absence at all. So I haven't heard what you already told, but I just want to say hello to everyone. And I think Michal already told about the purpose of our today's talk. As I just wanted to say, as all of us remember that not so long time ago, one of the most interesting events in the world for mobile developers, I think, in Google area took place. Of course, I'm talking about Google I/O. So previously, this event was offline, but in the last year,
this year again we are losing you. Yeah, this year it was let's say partially available for people to be there in live. So it's good for some of you, mostly from US, who were there, but unfortunately people outside of US were not able to join this conference, as I know, or maybe with some huge limitations. But a lot of things were shared in really good way, and probably you were able to join also some keynotes and events like that in streaming by local communities, so you have some kind of feelings about how it can be there if you watch this together with other peoples who are interested in the same thing as you. Alexander, what do you think in general about this year I/O conference?
I think about my unstable Wi-Fi connection.
Okay, you even don't hear me, as I understand.
No, I hear you. You asked me about what I think about the event in general. There were a lot of nice, interesting things. There was introduced nice hardware devices, and of course a lot of interesting news regarding Firebase, regarding Android, regarding Flutter, of course, and that's why we are here, and we're trying to aggregate all this news because there were a lot of different talks, and it was necessary to spend to take a lot of time to watch them all, and we will try to aggregate them and give a how to say concentrated news.
Yeah,
I just wanted to ask anybody who already been there on Google I/O? Please raise your hand, but you can't raise your hand. You can write plus in comments or minus if you've never been. Just understand that you are here.
Based on YouTube, we have 40 people. Or even 43.
Oh, yes, somebody answered to us. Yes, I was there 3 times before or 4. And it's a really nice event, but it's I want to say that they already not already prepared the nice, interesting feature for people who can't be at the time they're offline. This Google I/O Adventure is something like MMORPG game.
Yeah.
Your character and went around the virtual Google I/O, talk with different people, talk with MT, do some activities, take virtual swag, and so on. It's a really nice, interesting thing. And as I know, yesterday I tried, this game is still working. But there are not a lot of people there, but you can still try to take a part of this event if you haven't done it yet. So probably we can to start. I think all people who wanted to come right here. Michal, I think the first talk, as we can see in our schedule, about Android news. And please go ahead.
Okay, so welcome again, and welcome the people who not join us from the beginning. So as we mentioned, we will share 2 parts. One is regarding Android, presented by me, and second one will be presented by Alexander regarding Flutter, I think in 45 minutes from now. So as Google I/O is the event done by Google, it starts with really interesting announcement that they plan to release a lot of devices. So generally we have Pixel 6a, Pixel 7 planned somewhere this fall, and Google back again to support and think about tablets. So generally a lot of events during this conference shows that they are trying back to the topic of tablets. And also what was nice, they announced the first Google Watch, the Pixel Watch, which is created with together with Fitbit. So generally Fitbit was bought by Google, as I remember. So generally we have quite interesting ecosystem, and looks like Google is now focusing on creating something around us which allow us to quite easily switch devices or use devices to the same things, but in a little bit different way. So for example, use watches for payments, use tablets if we would like to have a little bit bigger screens, smart TV, of course, which based on Google TV or Android TV, and everything like that, including Pixel Buds, which generally should give us quite nice sound, and other features which support our Pixel phones mostly. So with this ecosystem, what we can expect is the fact that everything can be connected at some point in a really strong way, which gives us quite unique user experience in Android ecosystem. So looks like this will be big challenge for Apple at some in future, because right now we know only them as the company which creates huge ecosystem of the devices. So as we are talking about hardware, the next thing which they raise is the processor, which is still Tensor 2. So we have the processor which is oriented for machine learning, for working with graphics, really good quality of everything. So we can expect that machine learning and some other related to that features will come quite soon to Android world with much better functionalities for the users. We know that with ML Kit we can do a lot as a developers. Yeah, we can we have pose detection, some gesture detections, image recognition, etc., etc. So using something totally on device, we can do a lot. And one of the hardwares which were mentioned or presented during this conference haven't get a lot of the comments, but for me it's quite interesting that they at some point present the glasses which shows that okay, we will show you the translation. So this is something which generally can show us that Google Glass project may be back quite soon. But at the same time, we hear a lot, and we generally saw this on, I think, last 3 IOs, that Google increasing the numbers of supported languages in each area. So this cause that we are more open for work, and it's much easier to travel with all these gadgets. Use your phone to, for example, translate the menu or anything what is written somewhere on the street. So we don't have this language barrier in many cases. Also, the support of Google Assistants and the devices like Nest Hub Max get some improvements, which I really like. To be honest, I'm using Nest Hubs a lot, and something like quick phrases, which works in the way that okay, I can move my face to this device to watch this device, and camera recognize that I'm watching it, and I can use short phrases like set timer or alarm, and anything like that will happen without the magic word which activate the assistant. So it makes that our life is a little bit easier. For example, I really like this small improvement, like when you have the alarm, you can use only stop to stop it without any magic phrases before that. The next features, which are more for humans, are Google Wallet, which generally is back to the old name of Google product, because we had the wallet at some point, which is a little bit strange for me, because the old one had a lot of security issues, like bitmap of credit cards, etc. But this one looks like it's quite secure, and really advanced. Generally, it will be a home for all your cards, so you don't need to take the loyalty cards or any vouchers, tickets with you. Everything you can store in your pocket on your device, so nothing else is needed. The support for Android devices and also Wear OS give us more flexibility. And what I really like, and I think this is not part of Google Pay, sorry, right now, is support for virtual cards, which generally randomize the numbers of cards for payments, so you are not using same number each time, which is great. And I think this is totally new feature. Of course, as a developers, we will get the new API. The old one was renamed and should be extended to support features like storing the cards tickets which we bought, for example, in some travel application. But at the same time, they mentioned something about offline payments, which can be quite interesting feature. I haven't had time to go in deep in that, but it can give us some additional functionality. The thing which was totally missing in the market for the developers, if you are working on health or fit related applications, is the Health Connect. So one SDK which allow you to share and get the data from totally different applications. So this SDK should allow us to operate with Google Fit, with Samsung Health and Fitbit app and others using one API. So no matter what the user is using on daily basis, we as a developers can use one API to get the data. So the support for health applications should be much easier, and it's not limited to the biggest ones, like separate support for Fit and Samsung solution. So quite promising API. And as we are talking about some development, let's go to the details of the modern Android development. We have a lot of libraries, a lot of features which we can use, and what we can even heard at the conference, the 80% of code is usually from some SDKs, etc. So our apps are rather built from blocks. So what's new in Jetpack? The biggest group of libraries which we have on Android. So the first one, and rather show the path which Google try to give to the developers is JunkStats. So the solution which allow us to quite easily measure the performance metrics of our application using some heuristics, etc. So integration, as you can see, is few lines of code, and we can get quite good feedback about app performance and understand where we have the boilerplates of our application. So having that, we can go to another topic, which is baseline profiles. The solution which allow us to not only get the profiles based on some analysis of our application, but also create our own. So what baseline profiles are? So generally, this is this file which describe Android runtime, how the code and which part of code should be optimized. As we know, ahead of time compilation starting with Android 7 was moved to partially ahead of time solution. Because starting with ART with Android 5, we get the full conversion, which takes a lot of space on our device. So Google decides to do some optimization and reduce it till Android API 24 or 28. We are getting one baseline profile to recompile the application on device for the native language. But starting with the APIs above, we get also the functionality which allow us first provide the baseline profile as a developer, so we know what we need to optimize and which areas are the most important. For example, we can suggest to optimize the startup code, so the cold start will be much faster, or generally the start of the application will be much faster. And as we can see from the based on feedback from the market, this is something which is important for the users. They don't want to wait. We need to have everything fast nowadays, so we can optimize this code. And with Android version 28 and above, we get the cloud profiles. So based on the way how the users on thousands of devices are using our app, the data about it is collected and sent to Play Store, and the new baseline and cloud profiles are sent to new devices to do the right optimization. If we would like to play a little bit with the baseline profiles and understand our application better, we can use the library which is called micro benchmarks. So allow us to understand the native code directly from the Android Studio. So we can get the information about it in Studio Console or a JSON file with the details which allow us to find the places which we should optimize. Of course, they mention some improvements in case of tracing. Library, window manager get support for new device form factors, so all these foldable devices, bigger screens like tablets are supported better by new window manager, and new version of drag and drop functionality generally give us a little bit better behavior than we had previously. Of course, part of the Jetpack is the most popular right now library, at least in the articles, which is Compose. And with I/O, we get the release of Jetpack Compose 1.2 beta, so the API is stable, and a lot of new supports. Quite interesting is the fact that they are now focusing on quality, how everything is displayed for the user. What I a little bit don't like, Google right now focus really strongly on Compose, which of course for new applications is better, but we should remember that this huge number of millions of apps on the Play Store are still with XMLs, and the migration is not always that easy process. So I am a little bit worried about the the fact that they are working on optimization of new UI, and even some small improvements, which are probably easy to the old one, can be missed because of some kind of policy. At least this is my feeling based on the conference. So we see that they improve the padding, improve the way how we can select the text. So it is much easier because we see the zoom here. We get the nested scrolling, so it's much easier to support scroll from code nowadays, and downloadable fonts, which also give us this possibility to use some custom fonts for our views. Lazy layouts, which we can use for some kind of small list to make the UI a little bit more optimized, etc., etc. And the thing which is also important, that Jetpack Compose on Wear OS exists, and in my opinion, for this type of small screens like we have here, the declarative UI is much better way to implement the UI, because everything you can handle in one file. You don't need to split the code a lot because there is not that much code with these small screens. Also, what is good for us as developers is the fact that Google worked a lot on tools which we can use on the devices, on our computers. So Android Studio get a lot of features also related to Compose, like Compose multi-preview, which give us this opportunity to preview how our layout will be look like on different screens. So we have tablet here. Here we have the phone in landscape mode. Here we have some foldable device with dark mode. So everything can be checked on one screen quite easily and at one time without switching between the emulators or anything like that. So having that approach, the coding is for sure easier, but they show that it can be much easier with live edit. So we can write a code in our for our Compose and see the exact changes immediately. So what do we need more? Writing the code and see our changes. The UI changes generally in each application is right now quite easy. This is something which is added in Canary version, of course, of Android Studio, but I strongly recommend you to check it, because it's really game changer for us developers. The visual linting, so something which we know from layout inspector, give us some hints how we should change the UI to make it better for the users, to play, for example, with contrast, to add some accessibility features like description for image, etc., etc. So everything like that is now available in Android Studio, not only for XMLs but also for Compose. What is important generally for us as developers, using this feature allow us to reduce a lot of the issues in Google Play Vitals, which we have in our developer console. So so the area where we get the static analysis of our application and feedback about the screens and some other issues, and then when users are using our applications, more issues there. So a lot of these static analysis issues we already see here in this linting. If you address them, we reduce the number of issues there, and the smaller number of issues generally increase our position in ASO, because we have better quality than other applications. So probably this is the better app. The next thing which was added to Android Studio is Compose Animation Coordinator, which, as you can see, give us frame-by-frame analysis of our animations, so we can create better UI and much smooth animation, not only from performance perspective, but also from the UI perspective. And the feature which was really missing for me, I think from the beginning of Android Studio, like device mirroring. I have no idea why we haven't had this feature from the beginning in Android Studio. Why I need to connect the device. Sometimes the cable is not stable, or not good quality, or generally I would like to not I rather don't want to switch the devices. So I would like to do everything on my computer. Why I haven't been able to do that? Right now we have device mirroring, so we can see the screen of our device directly in Android Studio. The feature which also address the problem of quality of our applications, as we see most of new features support that, is the strong integration with Firebase Crashlytics. So we can see what exactly is wrong with our code directly in Android Studio. We don't need to search for issue and search in our code. It is presented directly in Android Studio, so we can quite easily find the places which we need to fix from Crashlytics perspective. Also, what is good to mention here is the fact that Google Play also gets strong integration with Firebase Crashlytics. So we are not only collecting the crashes as Google Play, but some additional information from Crashlytics can be shared. And generally these types of errors and everything we can find in Android Vitals, which also get a lot of new features. So right now we are not only see the general overview what's going on with our application, but we can filter them by Android versions, countries or regions, device type, device models, and having that, we can understand in better way where the errors and problems occurs. Maybe this is something specific for some country. maybe the issue which we get is specific to some network or any other problem or specific for some devices. So having that also in Vitals, we allow us to not only check what's going on with crashes, but also with the UI issues, performance issues, etc., based on different parameters. The biggest change in Google Play is the index, which is the list of SDKs, so libraries, which we are using in our apps for different purposes, like ads, like analytics, location, some social payments, etc., etc. We get the list of them with information about the versions, information about what was changed in specific versions, and we can even get the information that, okay, the version of library or SDK which you have in your application is too old or has some security leak. Please update it directly in Google Play. So managing over dependencies and the problems which we can have because of them is right now much easier for us. Another interesting feature is custom store listing, which we can customize per countries, per campaigns, per some specific URLs. So we get a lot of possibilities to create some good campaign for applications and address them in each place on our web page, on our website, via Play Store, via some social solution, and each link which we use can give us a little bit different listing, different way of presenting the application. So we can much easier customize our app, and as we know quite well, some customization based on culture, based on some specific events in some areas, are really good from a marketing perspective. And right now we have great tools for that. The next feature which we get in Google Play is possibility to configure multiple plans of subscriptions. So we can define that we have subscription, but with different plans, with yearly payment, payment for monthly auto renewing, or some prepaid plan, and some other promo solutions for each of these kind of subscriptions. Additionally, we get in-app messaging about the subscriptions, and we should get the information when subscriptions is near to end, when we are not able to use the subscription because of some payment issues and everything like that, directly in our application. So it's also the way which allow us to manage this much easier without any additional code. The biggest news in this year, for sure, in Android world is Android 13. So the next version of Android, which, to be honest, do not get a lot of new unknown features during the I/O. I think most of them were well known before that event, but we get the second beta of the system. So the UI customization, which allows us not only customize the theme, but also customize the icons, is, I think, quite nice feature. But we have a lot of other features. So for sure, again, better support for tablets, different devices like foldables, etc. Lot of security and privacy changes, including the permissions. Right now, we can have different permissions for store, like give this application only access to pictures, music, or whatever else. So you don't need to give this permission to all files, but rather specified for specific app purpose. The awesome feature, at least for me, is per app language settings. So you can define that one application by default is using this lang, the other this lang, etc., etc. So if you are not using, if you are using multiple languages on your device, is, I think, good solution. And at least in Poland, we had a lot of local apps which are only well presented in Polish. Even if they have the support for English, it's usually second priority. And vice versa, the applications which are by default in English and are great in English, but the translation was done probably by Translate or anything else, which not always provide the right words in the translations. So it's not always that easy to use this kind of application. So I think this feature will be the one of the most popular one for me, at least in new Android. What is also interesting and I think important for us as a developers is the Foreground Service Task Manager. So in new Android, user can quite easily kill the application which is active in the background. At the same time, there will be a lot of the settings which allow us to limit the number of apps and background processes. It is for sure better for us as a users to have longer battery life, but from developers' perspective, we will have another blocker for feature which exists only in Android nowadays, the full access to the working in the background, and it can be limited right now quite easily by users. So from user perspective, I really like this feature. As a developer, let's say it can be challenging. The thing which is a little bit strange for me is the predictive bug gesture, which give us this feedback. What will happen when we do the bug from the application? In that case, we will go out from the app. It is something which rather show me not the thing that, okay, right now as a user, I know what will happen when I click the bug for this application in that place, but rather show that this was confused for most of the users. And I think in many apps, the navigation and action under bug is not fully intuitive, and sometimes we can expect totally different thing to happen. So on one hand, it's good feature. On the second hand, why that late? Or do we really need that? Maybe we should force developers to get better navigation. and photo picker with some specific security levels, which allow us to share the photos in a nice way in the apps without any specific important permissions, and also block access to some important files for us. So Android 13, in my opinion, is not big game changer from Android ecosystem. For sure, is the next version, which is good to try and good to use, but I don't see really strong feature of this version comparing to the previous ones. What I would like to mention here is the fact that whole Google I/O shows us that Google tried to optimize our life in many areas. So they really try to create some kind of shortcuts for us in daily basis work. They also implement really nice features for the camera API, which allow manufacturers to provide better some features under one common API. What is a little bit strange for me is, or a little bit scared for me, is the fact that if your device will not support something by default, Google promised to provide the software emulation of this functionality for some camera actions, which can, of course, affect the performance on some cheaper devices. But we also get quite nice API, which allow us to verify the performance of the specific device. So we can quite, based on some values, define how our application should behave. Maybe we should skip some heavy animations because the device performance is not the best. So it's better to limit that. User experience will be okay, maybe not that fantastic, but for sure the time to do some action will be much better. And I think that's all from my Android sum up. So Alexander, let's back to the studio. You are muted.
And now?
Now we can hear you.
Oh, so it's great. I just wanted to tell that I was here all the time, but only backstage. And
great.
So I told to everybody that they feel free to ask questions, but as I see, no questions was from the audience. Probably everything was very clean and sensible. That's why I don't have questions. But if you see this recording not in online, feel free also ask your question to Michal. You can find him in Twitter or in Teams if you're EPAM employees. And of course, he will answer
of course
your questions. So, what do you think if you have no questions? We have 9 minutes before my talk in the schedule. We can discuss something. For example, what do you think about Firebase updates?
To be honest, okay, if we are thinking about what was awesome for me that was the fact that Google really tried to integrate the Firebase in each place right now. This is, for example, something which I mentioned already, that we have the strong Crashlytics integration in both Android Studio, Play Store, etc. So generally, we have one ecosystem which operates quite nicely. Also, it shows that we will rather have the nice ecosystem in other areas, as I mentioned, the devices. So I think this is good change from Google perspective. On the other hand, we get a lot of news regarding machine learning, some optimizations around it, which also show that, okay, you really don't need to have this strong device, because they reduce the sizes of each machine learning model, and it can be handled with much smaller number of the resources. So it is quite good. What I really like in the Google I/O and the way how the Google goes now right now is the fact that, okay, they back to the topic like tablets, different screens, and trying to support us as developers to make better apps for that. We get really huge number of tools which should allow us to get better code and work on it much faster, because we can get the feedback in a minute, because we see everything directly in, for example, Android Studio. And by the way, we from both platforms, and I mean here Android and iOS, we are getting this new way of creating the UI, like declarative UI, same as Flutter. But to be honest, I am not sure if with that way they don't cause that at some point we will decide to move to different framework like Flutter, for example, for the development, because okay, the big barrier which we had in the development, and for example, we have with the Compose, is the fact you need to really change your way of thinking about the UI. If you break this barrier with your native platform, moving to some other solution should be much easier. So
of course,
I hope that we will in future we will get not only, let's say, different 3 different or 4 different technologies which we can use, but better support and interoperability between them. Because right now, still, my feeling is that, okay, when I choose, for example, Flutter, doing something natively is still a challenge. We don't have, let's say, the same way or similar way to do something. You need to understand some specific platform, and this is something which for me is missing part for this I/O, that we do not get a lot of features which support mix of Flutter and native development. Not sure if you agree with me, but
Absolutely. Currently, I'm preparing the talk about integration Flutter with native platforms and all kinds of this integration. I mean, platform channels, platform view, Dart.ffi, and so on. This talk will be about all of them, opportunities of all of these methods. I think it will be ready soon, and I'll show somewhere, probably here, about people series, or probably on some conferences. And as I know, you already tried work with Flutter. What do you think about Flutter in comparison with Jetpack Compose?
To be honest, okay, Flutter is something which is declarative from scratch, let's say. If we are talking about Compose, we still build the declarative UI on top of imperative logic usually, and this is, I think, quite big challenge to switch between these two words. In case of Flutter, for sure, I like the fact that, okay, you can write one code and run it on really different platforms. Different platform usually mean different user experience, so we need to do some changes, but still some parts can be shared quite nicely. Comparing to Compose, we, for example, see that we have Compose for Android, but at the same time, JetBrains works on Compose for web or desktop, which has quite similar API. And we also had this opportunity to, let's say, create quite similar code or shared code for different platforms, which we, for example, do not have that much with SwiftUI. But if we are thinking about the Flutter, if I would like to create my own application right now, probably this is the technology which I will choose. Easy, much faster to write the code. You don't have all these legacy hell as, for example, on native platforms. So come on, you have something new, fresh, which was created with also developer in mind, and the lang which was created to create at the beginning as a lang for UI, I mean Dart, which also shows the power of Flutter in many areas.
Yes, thank you very much for your talk and for your answers. I think it's time to move on and talk a little bit about Flutter. Let me share my slides. So in this talk, we will discuss, I will discuss with you, and you can ask me something in your comments about Flutter news that they were introduced on this Google I/O. I think this part will be mostly interesting for people who already has Flutter experience. But if you don't have, you can try to hear this talk as well. Probably you will be interested in the future, and we'll try the Flutter and try to do something with it. So let's move on. Mikhail, I will remove you from the stream. See you after the talk. Probably you will have a question or something like this if nobody asks. Okay, let's go. So, as mentioned before, my name is Alexander Denisov. I'm software engineer from EPAM and Flutter and Dart Google developer expert. And let's start with review the Gradle from Flutter point of view. And the first slide is about the most important news from Flutter side. The most important news from Flutter point of view is the introduction of Flutter 3.0, of course, and Dart 2.17. Almost nobody, I think, expected such news. Of course, developers waited, I think, many updates, but not new major version. Usually, updates to new new major version happens when implementing something really new. For example, in the previous major version update, when Flutter 2.0 was announced, there was Flutter transform from cross-platform framework to multi-platform framework. It was really great and really big change. And what about 3.0? Actually, this time nothing such revolutionary wasn't announced, but nevertheless, important change was implemented. All supported platforms are unstable. iOS, Android, Web, Windows, Linux, and macOS are currently unstable. And the new era, I think, is coming, the era of Flutter desktop development. By the way, Google I/O was a half month ago, but Flutter team already published the first update. And if you still not migrated your app to 3.0, you don't have such chance because you need to migrate to 3.0.1 and Dart to 17.1. Yes. And so let's move on. Since the beginning of 2018, Flutter was growing up very, very fast, as you can see on this picture. The first stable release was in the December of the same year that public beta was announced. Well, by the way, React Native doesn't have stable version right now. So you can see this the timeline, and you see that a lot of interesting things were implemented during 2018, 2019, and 2020. Dev tooling, add to app feature, metal support, native platform use. About native platform use, you also can could here in the my next talk about Flutter, all phases of Flutter integration. So in the March of 2021 was implemented the new major version of Flutter, as I told before, and there were web support, desktop preview support, and the big breaking change for Dart languages, sound null safety. And I think a lot of people spent a lot of time to make to implement some null safety in their app. And also there were some support of Material View of Windows, and now we are here. This is Flutter 3.0. Let's take a look. What was added to this release? Stable support for macOS and Linux. Material design free of Material or Material View completed support. Stable support of Flutter and Firebase integration. Flutter Games Toolkit. Of course, some updates for mobile and web. And some tooling updates. So, stable support, the first box on the screen. This is the reason why the major version was increased. Let's take a look what included stable support. What was implemented since the previous version. So the first one is cascading menu and support for the macOS system menu bar. Let's keep it right now. We'll discuss it in details a bit later. Then full support for international text input, including the languages that makes use text input method input method editing, like Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and so on. Accessibility on all desktop platforms. There are screen readers, accessibility navigation, inverted colors, and all these features work on Windows, Linux, and macOS. And the next one is interesting thing. This is a universal binaries on macOS. That means that Flutter has native support for both kind of Apple devices, Apple desktop devices. I mean, Intel-based and Apple Silicon-based device. You can just write your code, and it will natively support it on the both kind of CPU. And what next? What next? And this release support of old version Windows was removed. Why? Because this Windows have no more support by Microsoft. You still can create applications for Windows 7 or Windows 8, but Flutter team doesn't give you guarantee that everything will work fine, because Flutter won't be tested on this kind of platforms. And let's come back to the first point, cascading menus and support. So we have new widget. It's named Platform Menu Bar. It's just a menu bar that uses platform native API to construct and trigger menu described in widgets platform menu and platform menu item. So you can take a look to this demo. You can control your native menu here. You can create your own menu, create your own submenu, and have a full control of them. It's nice, I think. With this feature, you have opportunity to create a really native desktop application, not just a copy of your mobile application, and real desktop app. Why? What do they mean? I mean that mobile application has a big difference with desktop application from UI UX point of view. You have only taps and swipes on your mobile device, and on your desktop application you have to support keyboard events, mouse events, you have to support menu, and so on. But anyway, it's much more easy to just add support of these features than create new desktop application from scratch. So let's move on to mobile updates. There are a lot of great updates. The first is iOS variable refresh rate support. What does it mean? There are some iOS devices with ProMotion display, like iPhone 13 or iPhone 13 Pro and iPad Pro. On these devices, Flutter applications can render with 120 Hz frequency. Before, it was limited to 6 Hz. In the result, there can be such smooth animation like in native applications. Before, we didn't have this opportunity. The next point is Simplified Ios Releases. Very, very nice update. You no longer need to open Xcode to release your app. I mean, when you're ready to distribute your app to TestFlight or to App Store, you just need to run Flutter build IPA command to prepare Xcode archive and a bundle of your application. Then you just need to upload this bundle using Apple Transport macOS application or App Store Connect API, and voila, everything will be in the store. I mean, not everything, of course. Your application will be in the store. So, Gradle version update. The latest version of Gradle and Android Gradle are using in Flutter 3.0. For old projects, you just need manually increase version of your Gradle to get all functionality of them. So next one, Flutter 3 is the last version of Flutter that supports 32-bit iOS devices. The next version won't support 32-bit iOS. It's just very old devices like iPhone 5, iPhone 6. And the last but not least, of course, update is foldable font support. Now, as a part of your media query widget, you have a list of display feature objects as a property of media query. Yes. Using this object, you can get bounds, states, and type of your device elements that you have to support. For example, you have 3 type of device: hinge, fold, and cutout, as you can see on this screen. Also, you have some states that provide information about state of your device, like flat, when a device is completely opened, half opened if you have only partially opened device, and unknown. Unknown is for device like cutout, which always open but has a some closed things on your display. And using this thing, you can understand, do you have camera on the screen or not. And also, what do you have out of the box? You have support of dialogues and pop-ups. For example, if you have foldable devices, before your dialog was shown in the middle of the screen and was cut by this line that you have in the middle of foldable devices. But now, with support from out of the box, your dialog will be shown only on the one part without risk to be cut. What it's interesting to say here more. Microsoft team contributed a lot to this functionality and prepared a lot of examples. Here is the link to the set of these examples that prepared by Microsoft. For example, you can find their Flutter app gallery completely prepared for foldable devices. That's interesting. I recommend to take a look there. So let's move on. Let's discuss web updates. There are not many updates, but they are really, really important. For example, image decoding. Image decoding is a really great update that work only on Chromium-based browsers, but on these browsers, it gives opportunity to decode your images asynchronously. That really speed up your application like twice and never blocks main thread. But again, only for Chromium-based browsers. And the second update is a web app lifecycle. As you remember before, when we work with web applications, you have to wait when your application completely downloaded to your browser, and after it will be run. Now, using this update, you can control a bootstrap of your web application. You have 3 steps in this lifecycle. The first is loading the entry point script that fetches the main.js file and initialize the service workers. The next step is initializing the Flutter engine. Initializing the Flutter engine is just initializes the Flutter engine and download required resources like assets, fonts, and Canvas kit, of course. Canvas kit is also a resource. And the last step is running the app. It's just a step that prepares your DOM tree and run your Flutter application. So you can do something between these steps and implement such things as splash screen or loading indicator or interactive landing page. And for example, if you have a big web application and you don't want your user just wait for loading of application like 10 seconds. You can add something interactive to make your application more interesting. And here is the link to the complete manual how to implement such functionality. The next thing is Turing updates. There are also a lot of news. First is updated lint package. I think all of you use the lint package, and in this version was implemented lint 2.0. And there are many interesting changes. Was added many warnings, and the important thing here, if you want to update your linter in your application from previous Flutter version, you don't need to fix new warning manually. There is a command dart fix apply that automatically make changes in your code and fix most part of warnings. Most part, not all of them, because sometimes it's difficult to fix it. But there is a full migration guide. You can follow this migration guide and fix all warnings that won't be updated automatically. Also, there are a lot of performance improvements. There are a lot of different improvements that boost your Flutter application, such as updates like partial repaint of your widgets, or garbage collector improvements, or render improvements, and so on. And ads on Android. There is a package that gives opportunity to add your ads to application. Names like Google Mobile Ads. And this package was improved for performance point of view because platform views that render your ads now rendered asynchronously, and that's why everything is more faster. I skipped the Impeller because this is a feature that I want to discuss separately. Impeller. What is this? I think you remember the bug with animation jumps on iOS devices during the first launch. Animations jumped and scroll jumped, and the root cause of this issue was shaders. Shaders that weren't precompiled, and there were workaround. It was necessary to warm up your shaders through integration tests. Today, Google provides the solution for this. Impeller. Impeller is a method framework that gives opportunity to solve this issue and much more. Impeller contains following features: objects, predictable performance that gives you opportunity to to precompile your shader on build time and add them to your build. This thing gives you opportunity to gives you opportunity to tag or label all of your graphic resources to understand what happens with your graphics. And for example, animations can be captured and watched separately. Portable. This framework is not tied to client API, client render API. I mean, use modern graphics APIs effectively. It means that Impeller can use features of modern APIs like Metal or Vulkan. And the last thing makes effective use of concurrency. It means Impeller can work with multiple threads if it's necessary. One more thing. Impeller is not released yet. This is a prototype. Work still in progress. Don't forget about it. And if you want to add Impeller to your production app, because it's still a bit risky, but I think it will be completed soon. It will be really nice solution for preparing shaders to your application. So what else? Support of material design free or material U. Currently on the next level, you can develop your apps using all this this adaptable cross-platform design systems to use dynamic color schemes and updated visual components. But to be honest, I haven't tried to work with material design systems. That's why it will be very short slide. But here is the link to the code lab that give you opportunity to try to use it if you still didn't. And the news about Flutter and Firebase. I think it's really great news because before this update, you had to set up Firebase for your application manually and separately for iOS, Android, and web. But now we have our own button in the Firebase console, this one, and you can see that Flutter and Firebase is completely integrated. If we have a button, I think it's fine already, and we can work with Flutter from Firebase console. And actually, that's not all. You don't need. You need to do almost nothing to integrate your Flutter application with Firebase. You just need to install Flutter SDK, of course, and Firebase CLI. You have Flutterfire command there. You just need to execute something like this Flutterfire, connect, and name of your Firebase project, and all of your platform will be connected to Firebase. They're really comfortable, much more comfortable than before. Also, what we have here is Flutterfire UI. Before, we had Firebase UI for notification and so on in native development for Android, for example, but no for Flutter, nothing for Flutter. Now we have Flutter Fire widgets, especially prepared for Firebase. There are three kinds of Firebase services supported. It's authentication, file store, and run real-time database. There are examples of authentication widgets. You have here, we have here authentication widget. You just need to set up which kind of authentication we need. For example, here is authentication using email and Google authentication, but you have a lot of different methods there. There are also screen for restoring password, for example, and for example, profile widget. So you have all of them out of the box. Just add the package and use the widgets. Here is the link to the Flutter Fire URL. Also, what was implemented in this update, Crashlytics and Flutter now is completely integrated. Before, there were some not very good things when we tried to log Flutter bugs to Crashlytics. Currently, everything is fine and completely supported. You can register your Crashlytics and work with them in Crashlytics like native applications. It's really nice. Okay. The next feature is Flutter Casual Games Toolkit. There are two types of mobile games. This is video games or app-like games. Video games, something like actions, when you have to fly, run, shoot, and so on, with 3D graphics, for example. And app-like games, it's something more slow, like card games or so something like this. Public games that like a usual application, but games. And casual games from Flutter team point of view is this kind of games. And this game toolkit is just starter kit for people who want to easily implement such kind of games. What we have here, it's a game template that available in Flutter samples repo. There are some services that already connected to this template and music, set of music, and menu, leaderboards, and some of interesting widgets already added. You just need to take the samples, add your game inside, and you don't need to do such boring work like main menu, leaderboard, and in-app purchase. So everything already prepared for you. And also in this starter kit, you have a video build your own game of Flutter prepared by Philip Kratchik, a source code of tic-tac-toe game, for example, and a link to Flutter Game Discord channel for people who wants to create games using Flutter too. And there are links to examples of Flutter games. Not a lot, to be honest, but I think you can create your nice game, and I'm sure this game will be added to this list, and very soon we will have much more games here. And the most interesting game from this list is, of course, IO Pinball. This game was implemented especially for Google I/O. It's Pinball. For creation of this game, I was used some set of frameworks, how to say, tools. It was Flutter, Firebase, and Flame. Flame is a game framework to work with sprites in Flutter. It's about 2 years ago. I listened to the talk about using Flutter, using Flame in Flutter, because we created our first example of game in EPAM. But now I was really impressed. There is an article on Medium where you can read about this game and understand how it was created. And of course, you have to play this game if you haven't tried. Really nice. But I have to tell you that it can take some time. Don't do it during the workday because it's really interesting. So now it's time to Dart updates, because Flutter update, Dart update are neighbors always. There are many interesting updates. Let's move on and discuss all of them separately. I think my I'll say that the most interesting from my point of view update is updated enum, enhanced enums with members. Before Flutter, Dart enums was very boring, just list of values, and to do something with these values, you had to implement some extensions and so on to do something with this. You don't need to do something like this after Dart 2.17, because you can add state to your enum. You can add constructor with this state, and you can add your methods, override methods, and so on. You can take a look to this example. Here is state, the int value temperature, and we have constructor that gives opportunity to provide this temperature to values. And each value of this enum has a state, and you can keep there. It's a really simple example. You can keep inside the state the much more complicated object if you need. And this is a really nice update. The next one is Supernaturalizers. Let's imagine that you have a big hierarchy of classes that inherits one by one, and big constructors with a lot of parameters, and every time when you extend the class, you need to add super with the list of the parameters. You don't need after this update. You have keyword super that you can use in the constructor of the inherited class, and you just need to add the super, and everything will be much shorter, and you can remove a lot of boilerplate after this update. So the next one is named arcs everywhere. Before, if we have a mix of positioned arguments and named arguments always have to be in the end of constructor. And sometimes you could be confused because, for example, small flags after the big set of positioned arguments, and to understand and find this class, you have to list and so on. Now, after this update, you can put your named arguments everywhere, wherever you want. If you want, put it to the beginning, please, to the ending, please, and that's fine because it's really much easier to read if you put your flags before the difficult values. So I think I told everything that I wanted about updates, but Google I/O, it's not only about news. There also were talks and workshops by Googlers. And just if you didn't have opportunity to watch them, here is a short list of the Flutter talks. It's almost not about new technologies. Here are talks about best practices and of course about new features. For example, diving into Flutter desktop, it's about desktop development. But for example, Flutter concurrency, it's mostly about using isolates. If you don't know how to do it properly and which updates you are there, it's really nice talk. Talk about using Firebase Crashlytics, about plugin development, about application crash watching, and of course about web applications. Here you can listen about new web application lifecycle and how to cook it properly. There were also free Flutter workshop by Googlers, how to add web view to Flutter app, how to use material design free, take a Flutter app from boring to beautiful. And again, this workshop about desktop development. And as I told in the beginning of our event, there were really nice MMORPG game, Google I/O Adventure. Here is the link to this game. You can try and walk around Google I/O venue. Can get some swag. Sometimes it's not very easy. For example, to get virtual dash, you have to complete 3 small code labs on the Flutter venue, and then you can go with this dash. For example, this is the main. This is place near main stage. Google I/O sign. All of people usually makes photos here, and it's me with dash, of course, and with beer. You can drink virtual beer as well. So I think one of the most interesting things for Flutter developers, the area of Flutter dark path workshops by GDE. So there are some GDEs who prepared workshops regarding different topics, and you can walk through venue, find this area, come to this NPC GDE, talk with them, and try these workshops. There are a lot of interesting workshops, and my workshop is also there. It's me again. It was very funny when me as a real character meet me as NPC, and we had a conversation. Really funny. But if you don't want to walk through the venue, you can get information about these workshops from this Medium article. there is the list with description about these workshops. So I think this is the final slide. This is my Twitter and my GitHub. And if you have questions, please. Hello, Michal, again.
Hello, hello. I see that we have one question, so you can answer to it.
After this major update of Flutter, could you please voice some of your expectation? What will be in Flutter roadmap for 2023? Or this is a good question. I hope that first of all they could increase the amount of supported platforms, because I really interested in TV platform support because sometimes a lot of people, including us, wants to implement applications for TV using Flutter. But also I heard about Flutter application for WebAssembly support. This some kind of investigation already started. I read the article that some of Dart developers, people from Dart team, trying to implement such functionality and prepare Flutter for WebAssembly. And of course, it will be great to have more stability, because some of issue still not fixed yet. I'm talking mostly about Flutter for Web. There were still a lot of issues, despite the fact that Flutter for Web is stable since the previous spring, but we are still finding issues there, and sometimes this issue is very important. Okay, I see two more questions. Yes, I have real numbers of performance improvements, especially for web, but I read these numbers in documentation. I haven't tried and mirror these changes. It's possible to do, but I haven't tried, unfortunately. In the browsers that Chromium based, when we have a lot of images with high resolutions, performance improvement of loading these images increased twice. But again, I just read the information and I haven't measured it. It's possible to try. I think if you have time in the future, I will check. And what I want to highlight here, we can really improve user experience of our users using web application lifecycle to avoid how to say, not to avoid. Sometimes when, as I mentioned before, when your web application is very big and loading very long time, you can improve the user experience adding by something like loading indicator, splash screen, and it will work in parallel with loading of your app. And if you can't reduce the size of your application and increase the speed of loading, you can do this loading more interesting to avoid your potential your user switch off your application without starting. So the next question: how application size will be changed after migration to Flutter 3.0? That's a really great question. I have no answer right now. To be honest, I haven't checked this thing.
To be honest, for my application, it do not change a lot, but it's rather small. So
yes, I think if we have something interesting here, for example, the child size of application should decrease twice. It will be everything. The first news about Flutter 3.0. If we haven't seen something like this, it should be the same. So I think we have no more questions. Michal, probably you have question.
To be honest, I think we have the good ones from the audience, but maybe some general one. Which update for Flutter was the most interesting for you?
I have two. I can choose between them. The first of them, of course, it's a web application App Lifecycle. Because before you didn't have opportunity to have a control there, just wait. And now you can do something and make user experience better. And the second one is Flutter Fire Stable. Because I couldn't understand why Flutter and Firebase team is are friends, have talks together, but why we still need follow the step as native developers and to do the same steps for iOS, for Android, for web, and again. That's why I'm very glad to see that they
you have one
completely integrated. Yes, and you not have one. You have only one command, and everything will be done without your your steps, manual steps, like in native development. And I think it's much better than native development, much easier.
Yeah, totally agree.
And Michal, I have a question. How it was the connection? I was afraid.
Good. Yeah,
That's
it was
nice.
really good this time, so I haven't seen any issue.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening our review. Next review that will be published in the almost 1 month, in the beginning of June. It's WWDC review because of course we had to do this kind of review, not only from Google point of view, Google developers, but also from Apple developers, of course.
Yeah, maybe we should think about the review of WWDC by Google developers.
Nice idea. Let's think about it.
And vice versa.
Okay. Thank you to everyone again. See you in the next events. Bye.
Bye.